Hello and welcome to the Mostly Star Wars podcast. I'm your host, Crazy Quinton, joined by our co-hosts this afternoon, mostly Darth, Tyler.
How's it going? Thanks for sticking with us.
Our other co-hosts, mostly Martinez mostly, Josiah.
Hello again.
We are here talking on everything Solo, seeing if it's really as bad as some people think, or if we should give it a second chance. Thanks for joining us. We're a little bit behind with our technical difficulties, but we are ready to go now. We're going to start off asking Josiah. Josiah, since you've seen this movie, I'd say probably the least of any of us, and you were really diving back into it after a long hiatus. What were your thoughts on the movie?
Yeah. So it was definitely cool to jump back in and watch it again. I know I watched it a few times in the theater, and then maybe one time, at home. But yeah, ever since then, it's been a long time since I actually sat down, watched it all the way through. So yeah, I was actually really surprised. I had a good time rewatching it. And for everybody who was in the chat before, I already kind of told this story, but for the interest of the podcast, I'm going to tell it again. And also because I know that Tyler and Quinton would probably make fun of me if I didn't say it anyways. But basically what happened is I told on myself. I went to Redbox to get the kids, my son and my daughter, a movie, the new Bad Guys cartoon. And right when I was about to rent it, it said, "Hey, do you want to rent it for $2 or do you want to buy it for $5?" And so I'm a sucker for that type of stuff. So I'm like, oh man, makes sense. Just buy it for $5. Right before I was about to check out, they said, "Hey, it looks like you're someone who would buy DVDs here. Would you like to buy a DVD for $2?" So I was like, buy a DVD for $2? Like, definitely. So anyways, the very first movie that comes up was whether it's Fate or not, but it was Solo. And I was like, Solo for $2, it's probably just the DVD. But nope, it was the Blu-ray. So I was like, Blu-ray Solo for $2. And it's one of the only two movies at the time that I didn't have. I didn't have Solo and I didn't have Rogue One. So I was like, all right, I got to get this in disc form. And then I told on myself to Tyler and Quinton, who were shocked in disbelief, and they were disappointed in me that I didn't already own it on disc. But anyways, yeah, so that's the story how I got it. I've got to watch it actually a couple times now. I watched it with my wife, and then I watched it with my son again. And man, it's such a fun movie. And yeah, I'm super hyped to talk about it today.
Go ahead, Q. I thought you had something.
No. Looked like you were staring something down. So.
Well, you don't necessarily look at the show the same way you maybe would. Oops, my bad. The same way you would look at a normal Star Wars movie, but it's more like a fun ride. It's entertaining, it's fun, and the only thing that I would say that I would even choose differently is if this was exactly the same movie, but they were just different characters that I didn't know.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this is an extremely fun movie. There's some really good parts I really like, and we can kind of get into that.
One thing I thought was interesting is these non-trilogy movies were not supposed to have a crawl, kind of differentiate a Star Wars story from the trilogies. And this one has an opening crawl. It just doesn't crawl.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Words on a screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it opens, it's a lawless time. Da da da. And the crime syndicate competes for resources, food, medicine, and hyperfuel on the shipbuilding planet of Corellia. That's a fun one. The foul Lady Proxima forces runaways into a life of crime for the exchange for shelter and protection.
Yeah.
This is one that kind of makes me laugh a little bit. It says, "On these mean streets, a young man fights for survival, but yearns to fly among the stars." It almost it does. Uh, it almost feels like the serials of Flash Gordon and stuff, that the way that reads to me kind of what George had in mind for the original Star Wars. Just it's a little goofy, but also at the same time it's fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think like another thing with this movie that I feel like is interesting, and you kind of notice right away, is I feel like with the other Star Wars movies, there's like a lot more mystery with the characters and their acting performances, because a lot of times they're new actors. They're new, or they don't have like, track records of, other movies. So you kind of don't know what you're going to get with these different actors, right? Where this one is full of some amazing actors who, have tons of great movies and shows under their belt. And so it's interesting to have a Star Wars movie where you have actors and actresses that are already stars. And so, it does play a little bit, like, I don't know how it is for everybody else, but me personally, I actually love star-studded movies. Like, I love when, I'm watching a movie and then all of a sudden, someone like Brad Pitt or Matthew McConaughey or something just come out of nowhere, and you're just like, what the heck? They're in this movie? And I feel like I really like this about this movie. And once again, going back to my story, it's been a long time, since I've watched this movie. And not to say I like forgot all the actors and actresses, but I feel like these actors and actresses have done so much since this movie that now I kind of even think of them, in those different roles in different movies and shows they've done since. And so it is kind of cool to like go back and, see their performances in a Star Wars universe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially first one that comes to my mind is Woody Harrelson.
Yeah.
He's great in this movie. I love
So
Beckett.
good.
And even Paul Bettany, he's a huge actor. I mean, Vision.
Oh yeah,
huge actor.
Mhm.
And I mean, he plays a very serious role in this movie.
Yeah,
and then,
I love it.
Like Rebecca mentioned, how she loved the new Lando, and I feel
Yeah.
like this movie kind of gave me, it gave me the feeling of it's okay to recast beloved old characters for younger roles, as long as you do it right, and they can do it, because like Donald Glover playing Lando was amazing.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's not like it's just he's a really good actor. He's a really good actor, but he has a passion for Star Wars too.
Mhm.
He has a passion for Star Wars. He has a passion for that character. That was a favorite character of his growing up.
Yeah.
So he brought that love and passion to the role, and just blew it out of the park. It was amazing. He did really good as portraying a younger Lando. And it's hard to pick up, because you have to, when you're recast as a beloved character, you have to act as that actor acting as that character.
Yes.
I think
And that
that's
becomes
why
more difficult.
That's why Alden Ehrenreich got the somewhat bad rap that he did, was because he was forced to not just play Han Solo, but trying to play Harrison Ford playing Han Solo.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to do, because I mean, even when when they're at Kessel and they're about to board, he does the exact same stance.
Yeah, the bend over and back his way up shooting.
Yeah, and so they're trying to copy that a little too much, and I think that those comparisons is what makes it difficult for when people see the two characters. I think they didn't really do a lot of that with Lando. Lando felt like a younger version of Lando.
A little more. I feel like they gave Donald Glover a little more freedom, and Alden was like, "You have to be Harrison Ford," and then that's not an easy task, because Harrison Ford is one of the greatest actors of all time. He's not just Han Solo.
I think
he's not just Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
He's tons of well successful movies.
I think Harrison Ford ranks fourth. His movies rank fourth all time as an actor.
Yeah.
So movies he's been in
gross.
for gross.
Yeah.
So like that's huge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard to be responsible to live up to that standard.
I think the other thing too to remember is, you know, Lando was a lot of, young kids' hero too, but there is a lot of mystery kind of behind him. You don't really know his
Mm-hmm.
story. Yeah, you don't get a ton of character development in like the original trilogy or even the sequel trilogy. He kind of comes back and, you get a little bit more, you get to kind of see like where he ended up, things like that. But like, I feel like it was a lot easier to tell his backstory because no one knew it. Whereas, like with Han, you feel like you knew it a little bit better because he had so much screen time and you get to know him so well in the original trilogy that you then are almost like trying not to step on your toes or step on the canon of, man, did he ever
Mm-hmm.
say anything about this? Did he say his likes about this or dislikes about this? Did he ever say his opinion on this? Whatever it might have been, it's like there's so much dialogue that you had to be like, okay, we have to match all this up. Whereas Lando didn't necessarily have so much of that. So I feel like they really could, tell his story a lot better. And I really love that because just like the prequels, what they did for the original trilogy, I feel like, personally, this movie did like wonders for Lando. After watching this movie, and now it's like you understand Lando a lot better. His whole character arc and where he ends up going after this makes so much more sense. You feel it like at an emotional level more because you see where he's been, and even the decisions he makes in this already starts pointing and leaning towards, this guy is at the very edge of doing the right thing. He's at the edge of being the hero. He has it in him. He just
Mm-hmm.
has chose not to.
Like, if I would almost say Lando's entire attitude this whole movie, he's charming but annoyed.
Yeah.
He's annoyed the entire movie.
Mhm.
It's kind of funny. Like, what are you doing to my ship?
Yeah.
There's one part near the end which I'll get to later that I thought was one of the funniest things. But near the end, after the ship is destroyed, and they're at Savareen, Han puts his arm over him, and Lando goes, "I hate you," and Han just goes, "I know."
Yeah, I love that. The reversal of that.
Yeah.
That means that, so it just like it means I love you too, it also means I hate you too.
Yeah.
Mm,
Well, that's not the only time they flipped in this movie too. They also
yeah.
right was the TIE fighters are about to attack them after they've escaped Kessel. Han says, "I've got a really good feeling about this."
Yeah.
Mhm.
Instead of the bad feeling.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
But one
they
thing I
did
thought-
that. They flipped it
Go
a
ahead.
couple times.
I
Mhm.
was just gonna bring up that I feel like they did a really good job with set design and costumes in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Mhm.
the Falcon when it's new and clean inside, all white, it just
Yeah.
looks incredible. And
Mhm.
all of Lando's get up, his outfit and his capes,
His capes.
his room
The
full of
capes,
capes.
yeah.
I love that.
Mhm.
I like
Yeah.
Kira's like, it might be a bit too many.
Yeah.
Or when she's trying to put the
Yeah.
fire out with one, he's like, "It's a custom piece."
Yeah.
All worried about his cape.
Mhm.
The Lando is so great in this movie, and
Mhm.
I haven't looked at any news lately, but I know they announced a Lando show. Do you guys even know anything too much about that? They had announced.
Mm-mm.
No, but I want a Donald Glover action show narrated by Billy D. Williams. You know,
Mhm.
kind of that mix of both worlds.
Yeah.
Because I think they
So-
both have just done amazing things with that character.
Yeah, I would agree. I would really like to see both of them in the show. I think, and in fact, that's the rumors that I've heard, but I'm not finding any information on it. I don't see anywhere where it says.
Mm-hmm. Well, they kind of like hinted at it on the Rise of Skywalker, right? At the
Yeah,
end, like
yeah.
they hinted at like a spin-off with him.
Well, he also has a story where he lost his daughter, which we assume she was abducted by the First Order in Rise of Skywalker. And that's kind of what the new book Shadow of the Shadow of the Sith is
Mm.
going into, is him chasing that.
Okay.
Yeah, Kalani says she only knew Donald Glover from Community. Yeah, that's where I first was introduced to him as well. I love that show. It was a good, fun show. Fun fact: made by the Russo brothers before they, went on to do some really big movies like
Mm-hmm.
Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Granite T Rock says, yeah, we haven't discussed this yet, but yeah, Andor, we got that new trailer today. That was pretty good. It looks amazing, but that there was a delay until the 21st of September, which I was reading an article that said that was probably due to the fact that there won't be as much overlap with the MCU She-Hulk. So they won't be releasing as many overlapping, which is kind of interesting because the Bad Batch is supposed to come out only a week later now. So I wouldn't be surprised if that gets moved about another month out at least, because they were already going to overlap.
Never tell me the odds.
They were already going to overlap,
Yeah.
and so we'll see if that gets delayed. I mean, I wouldn't mind it being about a month delayed because it was going to run into January. And if it runs into February, rumors are as February sometime is when we're going to get Mandalorian Season 3. So
we could have like 6 months of Star Wars.
Yeah.
New content every week.
Yeah.
It's funny is I would have normally wanted to be like, I want to binge. I want everything now. But there's something special about that feeling waking up and going, there's new Star Wars today.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to see a new movie, I'd always go see it opening night and I get that excitement like, I'm going to see new Star Wars. And that you almost get, it's like a mini version of that feeling when there's a new episode.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the other thing is also,
What's that said?
the delayed
Especially when
expectation.
Okay, sorry to interrupt, Josiah, but Seth said, especially when you have a podcast where you get to talk about it every week.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's always fun to talk about new stuff.
Makes it fun. Yeah. No, I was just gonna say, I think the flip side of, the excitement of new Star Wars coming out is also, the excitement for, those 6 days as well, leading up to the new episode. It's like, so it's not just even that same day, but you have, multiple weeks, all week, you're thinking about what you just saw and all those implications
and the theories you can come up with.
Yeah. All your theories of what possibly could happen on the next episode. It's so great to have, it is nice to binge. And I also like when they do like a mix like this, this one obviously is not necessarily planned, but the having 3 episodes to binge gives you like a little bit of that, you're definitely into the story by 3 episodes. So you're going to be 100% invested after that first night and, super excited for the rest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, think about the 3.
Go ahead, just a sec. Says, yeah, I love the theories and picking the previous episode apart just to have it completely invalidated by the next episode.
Yeah, that happens. That happens so many times in Solo. We're like, oh, what if this could happen? And then it's completely opposite direction.
Yeah,
but it's all fun. I do think the 3 episode premiere is kind of like getting a movie to start a series. If you think about it, it's definitely going to be movie length, 3, possibly even, if they're close to an hour, that could be, that's a pretty long movie, almost 3 hours long, 2.5 hours.
I would be surprised. I hope they're an hour long, but I would be surprised if they are, just for the fact that we already know there's 12 episodes in the season. That's the long there. Other than, I think, like you mentioned, the Bad Batch, any of a new Disney Plus show, especially live action, that would be the longest one, longer than Falcon and the Winter Soldier, longer than any MCU project. So it would be interesting. Even at a half an hour, it still might be one of the longest ones.
Yeah.
But, all right. So we got a little off topic there. It was right as I'm going to move along, then chat pops up, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So Rebecca says maybe 40 minutes. Yeah, they're more, especially, she says that they're more variable. I find that more true with Disney Plus than anyone else.
Yeah.
You know, you watch other shows, all of Stranger Things episodes were, well, this season in particular was variable.
Crazy, but
This season is crazy, but before that, like, they were all about an hour every episode. Same with like shows like The Expanse and stuff. Those were all about an hour. But Disney Plus, like, whether it's MCU or not, they are very one episode could be 28 minutes and one episode's 58 minutes. You never know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, Seth says the budget looks so high. Yeah, it really does. It looks quality. And
I feel like the volume has kind of made that feeling, though. Like, you get, I mean, I don't know how much of the volume they've used, but I feel like you get what looks high quality, high budget, if they're not spending that much.
What I liked about this trailer is you get the gritty feeling, but I think the gritty feeling is almost more in the contrast of, like Cassian says, them look at them, they're fat and happy and whatever and proud of themselves, and they're in their nice clothing in pristine whatever it is, or it's the Senate or anything. Everything's
cool
nice and clean and white. The Senate.
I am the Senate.
But then you have the dirt and the mud and the trees of the people, the real people that they're supposed to be serving, but are really enslaving, basically.
Yeah.
And so that's where you get the gritty contrast. I like that, and I look forward to seeing how it plays out.
Installing a regime loyal to the Empire and defeating the hostiles.
Yes. Yes. I loved that line. Okay. So we had our little Andor special. So let's kind of get back.
We got excited because of the trailer.
I know. I kind of wanted to do this at the start, but I forgot to mention it to you guys, so it's all good. But like you just said, in Solo, he joins the war and he's fighting, and he literally doesn't even know what they're fighting for.
Yes.
And so repeat the line you just said, Q.
We're installing a regime loyal to the Empire and defeating the hostiles.
And Han goes, "What hostiles? We're the hostiles. It's their planet."
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, that is one of the few lines that I think is deeply Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one that would fit in with the rest of all the movies, not necessarily just the fun ride that is Solo, but makes you think. Gives you that morality view.
Because I like that the Empire is not a big part of this story. It's actually quite a small part of the Solo story. But there are these moments that show you that the Empire is while this is all going on, the Empire is still out doing bad things. You know, the Empire is not good. They're killing the leaders of this planet so they can install their own leaders loyal to the Empire.
Mm-hmm. And go ahead.
No, I was just laughing. Seth said there are heroes on both sides.
I think. Oh, that's our Revenge of the Sith talk. I think.
Mhm.
I'm not. We're not. Okay, so Rebellica says joining the military was his ticket out of his situation. I don't think poorly for him for joining in the first place. No, that's. I don't think that
Yeah.
was the point we were making. It was more his understanding that they shouldn't necessarily be participating in the events that they're doing.
Yeah.
More so
Yeah, I'm not.
than.
I wasn't getting at that he was bad for joining the Empire, and he joined the Academy because he wanted to fly.
Mhm.
He wanted to
Yeah.
fly and then figure out a way to save Kira.
Yeah. Yeah,
His-
100%. And I think the other thing, since Rebecca brought that up, is I think a lot of people were doing that at that time. So I think obviously the Empire, knowing that it was backed by, Palpatine, the evil Sith Lord, the Emperor, I what they were doing in their main mission obviously was all bad. But I feel like a lot of the people, especially like in the lower ranks, didn't necessarily know what was going on, and by the time that maybe they did, it was too late. And Rebellica said she likes the Thrawn books too. It just reminds me of like Eli, like he's just like he's a good guy, that
Yep.
joined up and didn't necessarily know, he's thrown into all of these situations. And even, as deep as he was into a lot of the missions, I still don't know if he necessarily fully understood how bad they were, what the full objectives were. And so I think
Mhm.
there's probably a lot of people like that, we saw that too in the movie. I was going to bring that up because they had the little commercial, right, in the little the area or whatever, the landing zone or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, they had the trailer that was like, join the Empire, help out and do good. And I can't remember it
Mhm.
all said, but that whole propaganda that, for these people that maybe grew up in poverty or poor, or just wanted to leave their bad, their living situation, or to travel, or to do something bigger than themselves. I feel like that would have been very enticing.
Yeah, just
So
like Seth mentioned, I was just
right.
gonna bring this up, and then he mentioned it in chat. Just like Tala
Yeah.
in Obi-Wan, when she joined, she thought she could join and join the Empire, serve the people, right? And
Yeah.
then she learned that they were using that to do bad things, and she decided to take action on her own and to make better of it. And it
Hmm.
kind of reminds me of in the Aftermath books, you get Admiral Sloane.
Yeah.
She joins the Empire because when she's young, she gets attacked by these gangsters, by these thugs, and Imperial stormtroopers save her life.
Hmm.
From just random thugs. And so she goes, oh well, these are good people out here doing good things. I want to do that too.
Hmm.
And so not everyone who joins up to the Empire is like, oh, this is bad. Yes, we get to install regimes loyal to the Empire. They're out there thinking that they could possibly be protecting people and serving the people, and then the Empire uses them in ways that they might not necessarily think they want to be used or know that they're going to be used.
I think we talked about this once before, but the fact of like why aren't there clones stormtroopers? And it just makes more sense for the entire empire to have just regular citizens being stormtroopers, because what happens when everyone in the galaxy has a relative that's a stormtrooper or an officer or someone who works for
Yeah.
the empire? It's like it's an installed loyalty,
Hmm.
whether
Yeah.
whether you know it's bad or not.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Just like this is no different than, say, Iden Versio from Battlefront, the Battlefront 2 video game.
Hmm.
That's a real good story if you haven't played it. It's a fun one. It's interesting. I'd love to see her in more stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
But yeah, so it was a really cool moment. The only moment I don't like about when he was signed up is them giving him a name. I felt like that just his name's Han Solo. Why can't that just be his name?
It is.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, it was a little bit like right on the nose, I guess you could say, but I think it gives to the whole show, like with the comedy of it, like I feel like it was a fun kind of funny thing, a nod that, oh, this is how it all started or whatever. Yeah, it was kind of interesting, and I think that it also, you know, it moves along with the whole story arc. What he ends up getting told not to trust anyone, and we know that he fails in that multiple times, not even in this movie but in the future too. Even trusting Lando again. So
Yeah. And it's just so after that we get he tries to get Beckett to take him along. And I think we should start like a counter of how many times Jon Favreau's gonna voice a character in Star Wars. Get a tally of how many times, because he was great as Rio, and I liked the character. I was sad when he died. Same with Val. I liked Val.
yeah,
And I think she has an awesome final line. It is one of the coolest, I think, almost in all Star Wars, really, especially as a final line. Okay, I'm sorry, I was reading. Seth said, "Oh, Tyler, we're among like 10 people total that played Battlefront 2."
Yeah, I played that whole story and the DLC, after the campaign story.
Yeah, it was a good one. So, yeah, okay, so he basically tries to blackmail Beckett and them to take him along, and he just has him thrown in the Chewbacca pit.
Chewbacca pit.
I don't know what you call it. Feel bad for Chewie. They're like, we haven't fed him for 3 days. And as we talked about last week, Chewie, Han says, Chewie always thinking with your stomach.
Yeah.
So
just
he
eats anybody that gets thrown in there.
He had to be hungry. And I like when he's thrown in there and he's almost buried in the mud, and he does the Shriwook, and he's like, "Yeah, I speak a little, you dumb Wookiee."
Yeah. Yeah. That was good. Yeah.
I like that introduction, and it was at first, when I first saw it, maybe I didn't like it as much, but after watching the movie a few times, I'm like, yeah, okay, I like it. It's good. And it's interesting. They team up, and it's almost Chewie, as we find out later, is 190 years old. He's smarter than probably most people give him credit for, because you can see him in this movie recognizing moments where Han is someone to follow, to help, to be your buddy. You can trust him.
Yeah.
And there are moments in this movie where you can literally see him looking at that. And I think when they get out of there and they pick him up, I think it's one of the funniest scenes when Han's trying to shower to get the mud off, and Chewie steps in right next to him. And he's like, "You couldn't wait," or something. He can't remember exactly what he said.
I mean, think about it. All that hair on Chewie, and he's been stuck in that mud how long?
Yeah.
Han should have waited for Chewie to go first.
The mess of that shower would be after.
Yeah, and then we also get to see in the pit Chewbacca rip arms off. And we had heard about that, before. And so getting to see him do that, also,
he does it later in Kessel too, and the line is so funny. He does it. He does it in Kessel, he rips the arms off the guard, and Han goes, "Really? That's the uniform that would have fit me."
Yeah.
Shredded it.
Yeah. Like,
I'm
yeah.
telling you, you will never have a deeper sleep than curled up in the Wookiee's lap.
Oh, I love that part too. That was awesome.
Yeah, Rio is great.
He's got
I
some
like-
great one-liners. I love it.
I like so when they're telling their story, and Val goes, "Oh, it's a girl. That's why he wants to go back to Corellia, because no one wants to go back to Corellia."
Mhm.
And Rio's like, "Ooh, tell us about the girl. Is she nice? Does she have sharp teeth?"
Yeah.
I just laugh every time. Does she have sharp teeth?
Mhm.
I was like, okay, well, we learned something new about his species.
Mhm.
But so the one thing, and we kind of move along to the train heist. This is another fun one. The only thing, like, one of the reasons why I said earlier that maybe if this movie was about was exactly the same, but with two new characters that we never met, it would be a little more thrilling, at least first time viewing, obviously, because like when Chewie's hanging off the train, I'm not really sitting here all anxious whether Chewie's gonna make it as that rock approaches or not.
Mhm.
And so that's like one of the only things. But other than that, you get this train heist, and it's interesting to see a train in Star Wars and how they're trying to rob the train full of highly explosive hyperfuel. Basically, is it coaxium? Is that what they're
coaxium.
after? Yeah.
Mhm.
And then we get our introduction to Emphas Nest.
Mhm.
I think you'll get a kick out of this, Josiah. The first time I saw them in the it was like a magazine poster before the movie was coming out, and they just showed like all of the Emphas Nest. And
Mhm.
honestly, it was a little bit like, man, those are really cool Destiny skins.
Yeah, 100%.
Because they look a little like some of the helmets you get in Destiny 2, the video game. But watching it more and more, I love them. They're awesome looking. They're
Yeah,
menacing.
they are.
And
Mhm.
just the way she comes in and kicks their butts.
Mhm. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Hey, big shout out to Too Big in the chat too. Thanks for joining, bro.
yeah, Rebellica. If you haven't watched this one, it's worth a rewatch. I almost would say, Josiah, you tell him whether it's worth a rewatch because you hadn't seen it in a while. Whereas I've watched it a good number of times. The biggest reason why I would say I've watched it a number of times is because I had the 4K Blu-ray with the Dolby Atmos, and it was the only one I had with the Dolby Atmos, and I had recently upgraded my system, so I've watched it a number of times just to hear the sounds.
I've watched this one a lot because I think it's probably my wife's favorite. She loves this movie. She watches it all the time.
Yeah, for sure. I love the story that we get, this side story of Emphas Nest, and it's kind of cool now too because so the actress is in Falcon Winter Soldier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
She's that same actress, and so I thought it was kind of interesting, and like now going back, I definitely didn't remember that from watching it before. So, and obviously that show never had came out by then, but now kind of drawing the comparisons of what she was trying to do with Emphas Nest and what she was doing,
It's not a lot different.
it isn't, so it was actually really good. She played that character very well, super believable. Yeah, kind of like one of those, you know, Robin Hood almost esque, you know, kind of stories. And so
Mhm.
yeah, the whole story of that was super good, and it was really good in a story of, you know, so much evil, so much conniving, cheating, scamming, backstabbing, to then have that in there too, right? It was kind of interesting that you know, people that aren't necessarily the main character ended up, you know, being, you know, the semi-heroes of the movie, which was really cool to see.
And she's uh Erin Kellyman. She's also going to be in the new Willow series as well.
Oh, okay.
So they're they're gonna so it'll be interesting to get more of her. I thought, yeah, like you said, she played this role so well and would like to get to see more Emphas Nest. I feel like we would have had, you know, Solo 2 happened.
Mm-hmm.
I think that
Yeah.
was kind of the plan, was we would have gotten more. That she was probably, and her band was probably a tease.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. For sure. Hey, another big shout out to my good friend Sean Capri in the chat. Thank you for joining, my friend.
So, and Seth says that he got to meet Aaron at Celebration. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Of
because she's
course,
actually
Seth
really
would.
nice in real life. Man,
Of
we need to
course.
go to a celebration. Would be so cool to go to.
Oh man,
That's
we
gotta
gotta
be
do
on our
it.
list.
Mm-hmm.
I know, and next one's gonna be, it's a little harder because it's gonna be in London.
Oh, that'd
That's
be
fine.
That's fine.
that's fine. Okay.
Let's go.
uh,
Oh man. No,
but
yeah. Yeah, so the train sequence, yeah, that was really good. And you kind of brought it up. And I know this movie does get a lot of hate in that aspect of, and I think the prequels as well were similar. People are like, oh, it's, you know, I'm not nervous, or I'm not scared, or I'm not, you know, thinking, is it possible that some of these characters could die, because we know that they're alive for later episodes. And yeah, so I mean, even the Kenobi series, for that matter, you're like, you know, we
yeah,
could think of the big controversy over, you know, the Grand Inquisitor. Everyone's like, what, she can't do that, he can't be dead, he's alive later,
yeah,
and he's in this, it's gonna, you know. And we like Seth said earlier too, you know, just wait a couple episodes, we'll find out what the truth is. You know, we can have all our theories, but just let the show play out.
hmm
But yeah, this one definitely had that. I agree. I wasn't necessarily, you know, like, I obviously everyone knows that Han and Chewie survive, Lando survives, type situation. So I wasn't afraid of that. But like I've said a million times, whenever I go into a movie, I try to 100% be into it. And I still even thinking and knowing that no one's going to die, I still feel like there was that adrenaline in that train sequence, wondering if someone's going to get injured, or are they going to be able to successfully, you know, do the heist, which
hmm
obviously they were not able to, and there was casualties. So I mean, even though we knew some of the characters were going to survive, I think there was still like that adrenaline and, you know, kind of like fear of what's going to happen, and that fear obviously paid off to be true when it was a complete failure.
so like, um, it's Force Center. The Force Center podcast, one of the ones that I listen to, they have a motto of engage with the story that's being told.
Hmm.
And basically what they mean by that is, you know, you kind of have to let go of your own ideas for what you think the story is, and let those parts go, and just engage with what you're watching, what the story is, not what you hoped for. Like
Hmm.
I had that for, I think it was episode 4 of the Kenobi show, because I wanted them to like go towards the path and see some of that stuff instead of just, you know, the Fortress Inquisitorius. I'm like, I know what that looks like. I played Jedi Fallen Order, you know, so I had to deal with that, and so it's kind of the same way. You just need to, just focus on the story that's being told, and that's kind of what we had here. And so kind of like you've been saying, but this train ride was cool and it's fun, and one of the best, most like heartbreaking parts, it was Val, and like she knows that Beckett's not a great dude and everything, but she's loyal to him, she loves him, and she sacrifices her life. But her last line is, "It's been a ride, babe." I just love the way she delivered that. It's been a ride, babe.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
it's just one of my favorite lines.
Yeah, I think that is always that's the tough thing is, you know, when especially being passionate and big Star Wars fans is when your expectations, because you know so much about like the Star Wars universe and you've consumed so much Star Wars material, you kind of almost know what's going to happen, you know? And so when that expectation doesn't happen, I feel like sometimes we're our own worst enemies. And I think that's why when you hear, you know, Poe say, somehow Palpatine has returned, you're like, what? Like after everything, that's what we get. You know, I feel like,
Let's
you know,
not talk
like,
about it.
We're not to that podcast yet.
But yeah, it is true.
We'll
like,
get there.
Even like, you know, going back to Solo, I feel like there's so much hype and so much anticipation of what was going to happen, and some of that when it didn't pay off, I feel like a lot of times, you know, us as fans, you know, end up, you know, being disappointed, and it was all something that we created in our head that should have happened, versus like what you were saying is completely being enthralled with the movie and the story and just letting it happen all around you. And I feel like that's really what happened the first few times I watched it. And so kind of going back to that is, yeah, if you haven't ever watched this movie for some reason, or if you've watched it a long time ago and maybe it wasn't your favorite, I definitely think give it a second chance, watch it again, you know, watch it, you know, in 100% trying to be in the story. Just let the story happen, you know, don't think about what could have been. And I guarantee you're going to love it for the story. You're going to love it for the characters, the interaction, and you're gonna start seeing this movie like I see it now. It's an amazing piece of backstory to these characters, and we're gonna talk about it later at the end. But then, like, one of the greatest things like happens at the end of the movie that just every time, no matter who you are, if you're a Star Wars fan and you see this little clip at the end, you get hype. So
I kind of, as you were saying, you know, because this movie does the one thing that people have been thinking about with regards to Han Solo's backstory since 1977, the Kessel Run. And that's a long time to be putting together what you think that looks like in your head, or some of the material, some of the EU books, you know, they don't match up, and so you kind of can get that disappointment.
Yeah.
And that's why, like you just said, you know, you kind of let go of that expectation and just engage with where we're going on this ride. And that's the best way I like to view this movie in particular, is it's a ride. It feels like a summer ride, like you went to the theme park and you're just getting on the roller coaster.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Rebecca mentioned that she had read all the original Solo story published when she was younger, and the departure from the extended universe disappointed her, so she had no real expectations anymore. And I mean, I totally understand how, you know, you've read those stories and it's been a part of your Star Wars experience for many years.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of experience with the extended universe, the old legend stuff, and so I didn't have that going into this movie. But all I could think of is, you know, those stories still exist. They were still good stories. It might
Yeah.
not necessarily be canon to this day, but it's still something that you enjoyed. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like you can kind of look at this the same way. Like it's still an enjoyable story.
Yeah.
I would say that for me, it's the same as like the Bane books. Those are really
Yeah.
good books.
I was just
they're
gonna
not,
say that.
yeah, they're not canon,
Mm-hmm.
but you also have your head canon and those stories, and kind of, I honestly don't want them to basically remake a book and make it a movie, because one, a lot of the details are missing when you do that, and
Mm-hmm.
two, all the spoilers for the story are already there. Everyone knows them, so you don't learn anything new. And so you, I like those stories. I think they're fun, and I like to revisit them. But I don't necessarily think that I necessarily want new content to just be taking old content and putting it on film, because
I feel like
you don't
it's a
get the,
double-edged sword
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you're right.
because it's what everybody wants, but if you don't do it perfectly, and they're disappointed anyway.
Yep.
And like I said, a lot of details get left out when you try to take a giant book and put it into an hour or 2 hour movie. You know, you're gonna leave a lot of detail out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
And
and
I think like I agree to some extent, like, you know, that people are never gonna be happy. And me being like a book person,
especially
and I
Star Wars
love,
fans.
yeah, especially Star Wars fans. But and then also like book fans. Like I'm a big book person. I love books, and my imagination can run wild with books. And I think that is sometimes the difficulty, is when you take a book and try to put it on screen, everybody already has, you know, their imagination of what the book looks like, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times it doesn't match up. But at the same time, oh my goodness, if they did a Darth Bane trilogy of movies, oh man, I would freak out. That would be the craziest thing. I
See,
don't even care how they do it. I would be so excited.
I agree. I completely agree. And my thought there would be that when you want to do something like that, you base it loosely on the book.
Yeah, yeah.
You take main ideas, not necessarily specific how fights happened or stuff. You just basically you take the main idea and not and so you loosely base it, and that also allows for some freedoms when making the show,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
you can do some creative things where you don't, if you're like stuck to this is the book, we must do it, then then it just, I don't think it comes out as well.
Mhm.
I feel like they've done a pretty good job of branding books into what's legends and what's not, right? Like it's clearly it's legends if it's a legends book. And
Mhm.
I watched a video, I don't remember who it was by, but they were talking about how they could do that with Disney Plus shows if they wanted to. That you
Mhm.
could clearly have like, this is Star Wars Legends category.
They already do. It's called
Visions.
Visions.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's true.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
But I mean, and they could take that and they could run with it and do
Yeah.
other, you know, previous EU stuff. But I feel like there's so much to make now as it is, that there's, you know, how many people can be making a new Star Wars show all the time, right? We can't be having.
Oh man.
I mean, there's so enough stories out there. You could have 5 new shows a week and never run out of new content if people have the ability to make that much. You know, there's that much story to
Yeah.
be told in this universe.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
for
that would be
sure.
overwhelming for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think the other thing, and kind of going back to this movie, is I think one of the reasons after rewatching it why I love this movie is because you get introduced to characters and you care about these characters that you've never even heard of before. And I feel like, that is something interesting. That is something new. It's in a lot of the story's arc is reliant upon and based upon these characters that you never knew. And once again, it's just, for any Star Wars fan, like you love hearing more than just the Skywalkers. We love the Skywalker family and, all the implications of what, was based on their decisions. But the Star Wars universe is so massive. And so to be able to get these little pockets of, people and situations and stories, even like love stories and stuff for this matter, like all happening in like a smaller scale than the big scale that we're used to seeing in the trilogy movies.
And it kind of shows, even stuff like this, it shows Han, yes, is a huge character and has a huge input on how things turn out against the Empire eventually. But at this point, he's more or less just a normal person trying to go about their. I mean, I guess, normal people don't do the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs, but but you can still see you can see the implications that the Empire is doing and how people are treated. At the beginning of the movie, there when they're trying to get through the gate, stormtroopers are just beating the crap out of people. And especially once they realize that Han got through or someone got through and they're looking for them, then they just start tearing everyone apart. And so you see the little bits, or like when he's at the war, where he doesn't even know why he's fighting to install a regime loyal to the Empire. Okay. And so you get those little glimpses. Same with like Rogue One, kind of how we've talked about, of how life is for a regular citizen. And it's kind of like some of the stuff that was shown in the Bad Batch as well, and in Rebels. And so that it's just more glimpses to see why the original trilogy needed to happen.
Yeah. I say it's not a problem if you don't look up, as long as you're not one of the people getting beat for no reason.
Yeah.
As long as you're not one of those, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
And this is just like, you can do this too. And I kind of like how this movie, it feels like a ride, and when it comes down to it at the end of the movie, you're like, okay, well, you can take this moral and this moral, and you can look at it almost no different than any other Star Wars film. Maybe a film about growing up, and Han he's growing up, and he does the right thing. He has to learn to make the right choices. And so it's not unlike other Star Wars movies. And I know, as Seth had mentioned it a little bit further back, but how good this movie turned out, even though the development process going through multiple directors. I think it was kind of funny that it ended up being directed by Ron Howard, who actually, I didn't know this. I knew that Ron Howard was a friend of George Lucas's. I didn't know this until I watched, I think, the first or second episode of Light and Magic. But he met him because he was in American Graffiti. Ron Howard was. That's how he met George Lucas, and that's where he got the hot rodding stuff and all the smuggling stuff. And it's just kind of interesting that he ends up because George had asked him to, I think, do the prequels when they all told him, no, it's your vision, do it. But he ends up directing a movie because he had worked with George in directing some movies in the past. I think Ron Howard was the director of the original Willow, the movie. And so he had worked with George and stuff. So it's kind of interesting how he became here, and now you'll have Bryce Dallas Howard doing so many good things.
Oh
It's
yeah.
just kind of, and that's almost like that's the new Star Wars family.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. I love that it's like a family legacy with them, you know, like he was, like you were saying, he was involved with George Lucas long before this movie. And so, you know, Bryce grew up really around Star Wars, you know. So it's really cool, man. And I love what she's doing, and I hope that she can continue to work on projects and hopefully be able to direct her own movie one day. I'd love that.
Yeah,
And
and oh, sorry, go ahead, you.
I was going to say, Seth brought out, it's one of the most expensive movies ever made. The budget of this film was at the same as Rise of Skywalker, tied for the 7th highest, most expensive budget movie ever.
I
And he
wonder
said
if a lot of
it
that had to
sucks
do with
because
rewrites, and
it's possible
reshoots.
extended times. Yeah, he
Mhm.
said that it sucks because of all that. It seems like Disney's trying to distance themselves from it. I think Disney in the early ages of Star Wars underreacted
rushed.
and overreacted to everything that happened.
Yes.
So I think they definitely overreacted to how this film did, and I feel like this film suffered a lot because of stuff like that, but also because it came on the backs of The Last Jedi, which was,
it came out like 5 months later.
Mhm.
A lot of the big Star Wars fans weren't happy with that movie, and this movie came out right after.
Mhm.
And you know, when the people who love the franchise don't like something, the casuals go, oh well, if they don't like it, it must not be that great.
Mhm.
And I feel like this movie suffered because of it. But I kind of feel like it's kind of like the prequels is kind of having its renaissance. So people are, you know, they're not hating on it as much anymore. It's
There's a
it's not as
huge
bad as everybody thought.
trending movement of make Solo 2 hashtag make Solo 2 happen. There was that
Yeah.
huge movement that
There's
happened
a lot
on
of
it.
a lot of lead up at the end of this movie that I feel like there's a good story
Oh,
that
man.
could be told in a second one, or even if they just did it in a TV show. Because I mean, that's
Mhm.
kind of what Disney was like. Okay, TV shows are safer. I would be okay with a solo TV show with these characters with
Yeah.
obviously Han and Kira
Mhm.
and Maul.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That
Yeah.
oh man, that would just blow it out of the water. If it was like, you know, even if we had a whole season, right? And we just knew Maul was gonna come. And then like even if it was the last season for, you know, a few minutes, I feel like it'd be, you know, oh man, I think it would be a hit to be able to see him, and he has like his, you know, robotic legs and everything. Like, oh man, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it definitely feels like he was there for that. He was the
his
tease. This is a tease for episode 2.
I feel like Maul's inclusion in this movie was a complete setup for a sequel.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
Because he didn't have to be there. This movie would not be changed at all if he wasn't there. If it was any other character who she was taking orders from, this movie would have finished the same.
And you could have just made it Jabba the Hutt. I mean, who cares? You could have made it anything.
Yeah.
You know, if you made it Jabba, people would be like, okay, cool. They're not like, oh, Maul. And that's, I think, that the reason that Darth Maul tease is there, especially because if you think about some of the casuals who haven't watched the Clone Wars, it was
Oh man.
it was a tease of like, hey, ask your Star Wars friends, why is Darth Maul at the end of this movie? And that is exactly the point I'm kind of talking about, Seth. He comes in and ignites his saber for no reason, and
Just to look menacing.
No, I think it's to tell everyone that yes, this isn't just a Sabrak with red markings. That this is in fact Darth Maul. To maybe people who don't know that he didn't survive, people who haven't watched Clone Wars. This was a very this is Darth Maul. So
there is no doubt he is who he is. And then like always, we've talked about lighting, and it's so big in Star Wars movies. And so to light the saber and then have like the red reflecting off of everything in the room, including his legs, that was so amazing. And going back to, what everybody's talking about of there being a sequel, I think that's always like, that's where the edge of the sword is a lot of times, is you want to make something, whether it's a show or a movie, that's a complete story, right? That everybody loves and can feel content if that's all that there ever is. But you still have to be able to, if there's more, like another season or a sequel, be able to make people excited about it. But I feel what they did in this movie was they guaranteed us there is going to be a second movie, and that it hasn't happened. I feel like that was the fail. Like they left the story incomplete. They left so many stories incomplete that still isn't explored or finished in any other canon Star Wars movie or show.
They set up multiple stuff. Enfys Nest, Kira and Maul, even Han and Chewie going to Tatooine to find this gangster.
Yeah.
And
whatever Lando's doing.
Yeah, whatever Lando's doing. Well, going up to sitting in the clouds.
The lightsaber that Darth Maul has. It's clearly, it's not the lightsaber he has in season 7 of the Clone Wars. It is the lightsaber he has in Rebels. It's different. The hilt is different.
It's got that little droop thing off of it,
like his cane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What? Okay. Says Dryden Voss was originally supposed to be a Lasat, and he said that would have been so cool. I don't know what that one was too. It's probably just something we said, but I love Lasats. Those are cool. I also like Dryden Voss has a lot of collectibles. One of the most easily seen one is an Easter egg to everyone's least favorite Indiana Jones movie. There's the giant crystal skull. It's easily seen. Now, it doesn't look quite the same, but it's like clearly supposed to be a crystal skull from Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. But he's also got Mandalorian armor. He's got a lot of nice, cool-looking Easter egg stuffs in his yacht.
Yeah.
And it does have that kind of gangster, Jabba Palace kind of feel to it, with the music and the dancing, and the food and drinks and alien singers. You don't know what they're saying, but
yeah, the
cantina, that kind of gangster vibe, but it looks less
classy gangsters.
Yeah, and what looks less hut, less sluggish. Everything's cleaner, everything's a little nicer.
Seth's never gonna stop with his Dexter stuff.
Not until we get some more content on that. If you want more Dex stuff, he's in that Brotherhood book.
Yeah, he's mentioned
I
a few
recommend
times.
that. It's a good book, and your favorite characters there, Seth. That might be one for you to check out.
You distracted me. Now I lost where I was gonna say next. So one thing is interesting is L3. She's pretty funny. Her character's funny. I think one of her funniest lines was she's cutting open the gate and she's like, "I can't perform when you're looking at me."
Yeah.
She's like, "I can feel you looking at me." And just her attitude is hilarious and everything, and the fact that it broadens back because now that she's in the Falcon, it's from the line in Empire when C-3PO is trying to talk to the Falcon, and he's like, such an interesting dialect or something, I can't remember exactly what he's saying, but so now you know why. I like how they'll come up with
Why the Falcon has an attitude?
yeah, like they just
They
like,
answered that question.
I don't think anyone even asked that, but they found a sentence to make an explanation from a sentence in Empire.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. I kind of forgot for a second. The L3 and Lando have a weird romance. LOL. Yeah, totally, 100%. I I briefly kind of remembered their interactions, but like rewatching this, especially with my wife, because yeah, my wife was just like, "What the heck's happening here?" Oh man, it's kind of funny. Like I will say that
It works.
like watching it again, it did like it borderlined a little weird. Like I will admit, like on L3's side, you know.
Mhm.
The mystery there.
We'll never
but-
know how it worked, but
So I don't really think I need to know.
We're family friendly here, remember?
Oh yeah.
But so then she plots it, and I love when they're trying to escape the Maw, or just they're escaping the TIE fighters and everything, and Han goes, "We need to switch the deflector shields to the rear," and Kira's just like, "Yeah, we really do," and she's like, just does nothing. She's just confused.
Like, yep, that needs to happen.
And
No idea what to do.
instead of saying "get out of my seat," do anything, Han Chewie just stands up and does it.
Yeah.
Reaches
And
around her. Yeah.
And that's why he's like, "How do you know how to fly?" And he's like, "I'm 190 years old. You look great." And then I just like how she just automatically like, "Nope, you belong in this chair." And then you get the moment, and you get the music.
Yeah.
The classic Millennium Falcon music, and it's great. That's a fun time, and this is kind of one of those things where, again, we had talked about how Chewie realizes that Han is someone worth sticking around for. It's kind of just like back on Kessel, we know that Chewie plans on doing his share, or spending his share to look for his family or tribe. They don't know which, but it's irrelevant because it's the same. And he sees Wookiees there being tortured by the Pike on Kessel, and Han's like, "All right, see you, buddy. I hope I see you again sometime." And I love the fact, like, when he comes back to help, he's got another, I don't remember what the new Wookiee's name was, but Chewie 1 straight is smashing Pike's head first into the ground, like going full Wookiee. And so Han's like, "And don't forget that guy."
Yeah.
But he says to the other Wookiee, "Hi, I'm Chewie's friend Han." And the other Wookiee goes, "Rrr," and just pats him on the head. And he's like, "Oh, okay." And so you can obviously, well, you can see, well, no, more
I'm
like
Chewie's pet, Han.
more like the Wookiees understand that. Kaloni and I were discussing this, but it's more like you've heard the term "the enemy of my enemy is my friend." Well, it almost more seems like in the Wookiee culture, to me, the friend of my friend is my friend. And therefore, if Chewie says you're a good guy, then that's all I need, and I'll help you as well. And that's what it seemed like at that moment.
Yeah, I love like you were saying, when Chewie basically takes over, right, in the ship, kind of jumping back to that. I feel like the whole movie I'm flash forwarding, right? I'm thinking of the future, right? All the things Chewie does, and there's kind of like, you can draw comparisons, right? But I feel like at that moment was kind of when I was thinking the other way. I was actually thinking of Chewie before in like the prequels and thinking of him with Yoda right at the
Mm-hmm.
end and like the friendship that he obviously already was able to get with Yoda before they leave. It was clear that that wasn't the first time Yoda ever met him, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then kind of just showing like you were saying like, you know, he's 190 years old. He has tons of life experience, you know, and you know, he's already had tons of crazy stuff happen in his life even before getting put into slavery, you know. And so like I really like that moment because it was kind of like one of the moments where Chewie was able to like kind of shine. And you know, like yeah, like you guys were saying, it was an epic moment to kind of be like, okay, this is, you know, this is the Chewie, like this is the warrior, you know, this is the, you know, the wise Wookiee, you know, that we saw in the prequels, you know, kind of, you know, coming back into his own, feeling comfortable with Han, you know, trusting in him and stuff like that. And yeah, I feel like that was kind of like that part of the movie for me where I was like, oh, I love what they did with the
I think
character there.
I think it really helps show Chewie is more than just Han Solo's sidekick.
Yeah, yeah, yep.
Mhm.
And that's why you can see moments of throughout the movie of Chewie kind of you almost there are a couple shots I feel like you see and they focus on Chewie where he's basically seeing what Han is and going, okay, this is someone you can trust and
Yeah.
can be your buddy.
Yeah.
Well, like when Chewbacca needs to go rescue the other Wookiees, Han gives him the only weapon that they have. He's like, I'll go on my own to try to do this. You need to help those people. You know, take every advantage you can get. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he that could have ruined the whole mission right there.
Mm-hmm.
And Chewbacca knew that he let that happen. I mean, not that he's going to
Mm-hmm.
stop the Wookiee from doing what the Wookiee wants to do,
Yeah.
but not only did he not try to stop him, he helped him in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So
And going back to the pat on the head thing, when you were talking about that, I was thinking about that. I feel like Wookiees kind of know that the majority of people don't understand them,
Mm-hmm.
right? Obviously, Han can speak a little at this point, and it obviously probably learns a lot more as years go on, being with Chewbacca the whole time. But
Mm-hmm.
that pat on the head is like, I'm here to help you. You know, we're getting along, even though most people wouldn't be able to understand me saying that. So why bother, you know, trying to tell you that?
yeah, it's almost like a sign language kind of thing of
Yeah,
like, okay, we're buddies.
yeah,
Like, huh,
Yeah.
you're Chewie's friend. Okay, we're buddies.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Seth mentions the irony that is L3's fate is to become basically the Falcon's navigation.
Be forced to do it for the rest of her existence.
And basically all the things she was rebelling against. And I thought it was funny because like
That's why she's so
she's
sassy.
like when she so there's a point where Lando is like recording his Calrissian Chronicles or something, and he's like, of course, Lando would be trying to make his own autobiography or whatever, and but then he's like, guys, you're not gonna believe what I'm seeing, and L3 was like, is it a mass breakout? And he's like, that droid. and then later she's like, Lando, I started a revolution. And she's like, I'm so happy we took this job.
And then I love taking off the restraining bolts.
Yeah,
Like
she's
the
like, I
different
don't know,
droids in
do
there.
something, free your friends.
Yeah.
She didn't even realize what she did. She started the whole rebellion there. That's an interesting line. I didn't really think about that, but when she says, I'm so glad we took this job. You know, that's it's this more of the universe showing that these droids are more than just robots, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she expressed joy over having taken a job because she got to do something she wanted to do, which is save droids.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think it was just about droids because those droids also unlocked all the restraints on all the slaves there. The droids, and that's another to your point, knowing that they're more than just mindless robots. That
they knew they were under control, and so are these other people that they can help at that point.
Yeah, and so that was an interesting point, in that they both understand, or the droids understand, that also those people are enslaved as well, and they need to be free as well. Not just the other droids around. I like the one droid is just on the desk, just slamming on just stomping on all the controls.
Yeah, I love that. That's my favorite part too.
He's just laughing. He's like, break everything. So one thing I couldn't quite tell, Quinton, you might know, in Battlefront 2, is it like it's a detonator, it's is it like a thermal, it's not a thermal detonator, but what is the big one that you can get?
A thermal imploder?
Yeah, it almost looks like a thermal imploder that Kira throws. I couldn't quite tell, but it looks quite similar.
It looks similar, but the explosion and sound is different. But the device does look similar.
But I thought it was funny because she throws those grenades, they go off, they get like a moment to breathe for a second during the battle. And Kira's like, "What are you guys doing? Let's go! Quit standing around."
Yeah. So she's a little bit more of a professional one.
Well, she's the boss.
Yeah, we never even talked about that, but at the very beginning, the thermal detonator, there was a rock.
Yeah, I love that.
That was also
you made a
awesome.
clicking sound with your mouth.
He's like, "No, it's not. That's a rock. And you just made a clicking sound with your mouth." Oh, that was awesome.
I did enjoy that part. It's funny, and sometimes not always all the humor hits for me on Star Wars, but I like that one. That one was funny, and I think a lot of the humor in this movie hits in the right spot.
Yeah, I also like when they're running away, like in that speeder, and they go, partially vertical to get through the buildings and get stuck right at the end. That was pretty awesome too. Well, both of their faces in the moment.
And then at the end there, when they're getting out, escaping, she's like, "That didn't work, remember?" He's like, "This time it's gonna."
Yeah. Yeah, remember we did or whatever? She's like, "Yeah, it didn't work."
When he does the one thing. Okay, this is really cool effects that I thought is when he does that slide on the asteroid, where it was mostly done again to fix a plot hole, because in A New Hope and Empire, the Millennium Falcon was shown with 3 or 5 landing gear. And so that was basically done because you see one of them break off, basically saying that, yeah, it can land with less or not, and just one was probably him just choosing not to have it fixed. But I love the effects of it happening, because what you see is he's kicking up all the rocks in the space that break the glass of the TIE fighter. And you can see it once it's broken, the whole entire ship basically freezes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's instantly frozen because it's broken, and then it hits that just the part of the asteroid that's sticking up, and it, instead of explodes, it just shatters like glass. And I thought that was a pretty cool effect to show, and it was a cool scene. But I like when Han's describing this. He's like, this buddy I knew back on Corellia was the best pilot until he died, doing what we're about to do right now.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I feel better now.
Yeah, that was cool. That was a cool scene.
The whole movie is just it is. It's got that excitement, that sense of adventure. And it's just moments like that. And we talked about Chewie being able to trust Han. Well, right at that moment, Han goes to change something, and right as they're taking back off again, he says, "Chewie, it's all yours." As they're taking back off the asteroid, he gives Chewie full control of the ship.
I kind of feel like that's a moment where it's probably a maneuver that requires extreme strength.
Yeah.
And he realizes that it's something that Chewbacca can handle.
Yeah.
So then we get to Severine, and it's an interesting planet. I don't know. All you see is like basically a deserty beach, and then like an ocean. You don't really see a whole lot to it. But
this is where you get the Easter eggs and the cameos. That is the biker gang in his nest.
Yeah, Wicket.
Warwick
Davis. Yeah.
That's
cool.
great. I'm always glad to see him.
You know, I've read that he's the same character that he is in the Phantom Menace. That his character is the same as you see in the cameo sitting at the pod race on Tatooine. Phantom Menace.
That's funny. I didn't really thought of that. But I like getting scenes like this where you get actors like that who have played, really pivotal roles in Star Wars, but you never get to see their face, right? Like they're extremely important characters, but it's behind a mask, right? But to get to see them do something else where they could be seen and recognized by fans is always nice.
Yeah.
And then you get Benthic or Two Tubes, which is the character from Rogue One. He's there as well. It's the same character. It's not just a similar alien. It's the same character. The guy who takes Bodhi Rook out of Jeddah to see
Saw Gerrera's number 2.
Yeah. Yep. He's there in this very early on rebellion. So I mean, he's been in that fight for a long time too. I'm sure. I'm hoping we see more of him in the Andor series.
I think we will, because isn't Forrest Whitaker in there? Didn't we see Saw Gerrera in the trailer?
Yeah, Saw was in there.
Yep, you saw Gerrera in the trailer, and I didn't know that for sure, but they showed that in this latest trailer, which was awesome. And we might get the Enfys Nest answers in that show. We might get some of that, which I would be all for.
Yeah, that could be like some of the beginnings, of it for sure.
I think it's supposed to be about the same time frame too. As this movie even.
So I feel
because it's supposed to be way before Rogue One.
Obviously, he somehow becomes Saw Gerrera's lieutenant, so there's definitely a story there, and I feel like the unanswered questions we have for them could somewhat be answered in the Andor series, which is awesome.
And I'm totally for that. Like we've kind of discussed, I would be absolutely fine if you continued this story in, let's say, a Disney Plus show.
Yeah.
Or even if they did like a Disney Plus movie instead of like 6 episodes like they did with the Obi-Wan, you could just release a 2.5 hour movie that just comes on Disney Plus. I think the reason why they like to do the Disney Plus shows and I think the reason they choose smaller characters is because you kind of want to stretch out these stories to make them a little longer. And because if you have a continuation, it keeps those sub counts, because I think Disney is probably the best one of this. Like, how many people got Netflix to watch season 4 of Stranger Things and then once it was out, canceled their subs again? Whereas,
Yeah, so many people
but
did that.
but Disney Plus also has the two biggest franchises in the world. I mean,
Mhm.
they have the MCU and Star Wars, and so when you can pump those almost constantly having a new episode of one of those two franchises every week, it keeps people
Mhm.
keeping their subscription because
Yep.
hey, uh, we just got Miss Marvel and Obi-Wan, and we're only a couple weeks now from She-Hulk. Oh, guess what? Next month, if you want to keep your subscription, guess what? There's a new Star Wars show,
Mhm.
And right after that, there's a new Star Wars show.
and then
And
right
then a
after
new
that,
Star
there's a
Wars
new
show.
MCU show, and just so on and so forth. And you just, I don't feel any other studios quite have the franchises to do that, or at least multiple. I know Paramount's trying to do that somewhat with their Star Trek stuff, but it's just that's
Yeah,
how
like
Disney does it. I mean,
Rebellica.
Netflix has Stranger Things, but they don't have
Yeah.
a Stranger Things universe. Although I think they're going to try that.
Well, like Rebellica said, she said the Skywalker saga is supposed to be over. There's a whole galaxy of characters to explore, and that's exactly what I think this movie is. Right?
Yeah.
This
You got
movie is there is no Skywalker in this movie, and
uh,
we don't even see Vader. Right? You don't see any glimpse of that.
you barely
And
see
I
the
think,
Empire.
yeah,
Mhm.
this is a Star Wars story, and it just happens to be around Han Solo. But I think there's so many other things going
Yeah.
on in this movie that could be portrayed in shows and or movies that go
Mhm.
on these characters that have nothing to do with the Skywalkers.
Yeah. And I feel like it's still like a safe move to have someone that someone at least like knows a little bit. This one was obviously huge because it's Han, and it's huge because it's Chewbacca. But I think if they did like they were originally gonna do, like, they came out and said that they wanted to like have a standalone movie in between these trilogies, right? And if the trilogies would have done better, I imagine they would have done another trilogy and continued to have these standalones. And I
Yeah,
think if they're able to do that, if they're able to have a character, maybe not as iconic as Han, for, fear of a little backlash, but even just like characters that we somewhat know about, but then all new cast the rest, I think that'd be great, because you're still getting that feel of, like that you understand a little bit, or have some sort of knowledge, maybe even that the characters don't, but you do because you know the story a little bit better. But then you have that fear, like, oh, is this character going to die? Because they can. There's nothing saying that they can't die, the main
And I
character
yeah,
or
think
the side characters.
I think that's kind of what Andor is because well, we got introduced to him in Rogue One, but I mean that's just a little bit of his character. And so he is a new character that other than Rogue One we don't know anything about. Other than his
Yeah.
actions and his implied actions, you have to think
sacrifices.
you have to
His
think
implied sacrifices.
like what made him become the man that would shoot his friend just so he wouldn't be caught by the Empire. And
Hmm.
but
Yeah, at the
other than
start of the
that,
movie.
you kind of like all you get is what uh basically it's a new character and you only have to go off Rogue One, so it's not like you have 6 Skywalker films and oh no, they're gonna mess Luke Skywalker's story up, and so
Yeah,
you can kind of
Hmm.
that's where you kind of have these new characters. When you have these new characters, you're going along with them on their journey, and so you don't
Hmm.
necessarily have this expectation.
Yeah.
Kind of what we talked about.
Hmm.
It's our job to like minimize it to be and engage with the story, but when you have a new character that you don't have any expectations for, it's a lot easier to do.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rebellica, she also said, just talking about the Disney Plus, she said, we have young children. I signed up for Disney Plus day one. I watch it far more than Netflix or any other streaming service. And I feel like we've already talked about this on this show, but you know, I've 100% like, well, for one, I have every streaming service there is. So there's
Yeah,
that.
we do basically too.
There's that. But on the side, I totally agree with you. Like we watch Disney Plus far more. If you look at like hours watched between my wife and I, and then if you add my kids, like, oh yeah, it's like it's not even close. We watch Disney Plus far more than like
It's also like the
Netflix,
cheapest.
Hulu, Paramount, Peacock, everything that you could imagine. Like we have it for certain reasons, like we do watch shows on those other ones, but it's I find myself going to Disney Plus not only for the show and everything there, but also like there's so many kids shows. So if you have kids, it's like it's a no-brainer. Like what they got going and what they're continuing to pump out, for Star Wars fans, MCU fans, and then just Disney fans in general. Like man, they're killing it.
I would agree because Disney Plus, I wouldn't say necessarily is my most watched, but it's definitely my most consistently watched. I can go a week or two, maybe even three sometimes of not watching anything on Netflix. But, with all the content that's rolling out weekly on Disney Plus, I'm on Disney Plus at least once a week, basically. Anytime there's new stuff coming out, and there's practically constantly new stuff coming out, whether it's MCU or Star Wars. I keep up with all the MCU stuff. I don't necessarily deep dive into it like we do with Star Wars, but I do enjoy
maybe
the
someday.
MCU. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but and I'll even endorse the Miss Marvel show. I felt like there was a lot of stuff that felt like its tone, it's a coming of age story. It felt like it took a lot of influences from Star Wars, I felt like. And in fact, it might have been the closest of any of the MCU shows to feel the most like Star Wars to me.
Mostly Marvel.
Mostly Marvel. Nice.
And I think where Disney's headed. Like I'm excited to see where they go. They've continually progressed, and like we are kind of talking about it a little bit of like where we could end up going. I think Rebellica mentioned it. She said the Skywalker saga is supposed to be over, like we had said, but there's a whole galaxy of other characters. The first thing I thought when I read that comment, I was thinking of Grogu growing up more. Like, can you imagine? I mean, we've seen him come out of his pod. We've seen his first little steps. We've seen his hops. We've seen him hop around, right? And like we are like proud parents seeing him just jump around and stuff like that. Like, can you imagine when he speaks? Oh man, his first words that we get to see. Like, oh man, I can't wait.
I just want to hear his first backward sentence.
Yes, and then like everybody wants it to be like I don't know.
It's gonna be
everyone
talk
cookie
like give
that?
me.
Give me.
Oh man. Yeah.
That's great. But okay, so just kind of.
I mean, you could. I was just gonna say you could jump 600 years into the future, and see Grogu in his prime.
Yeah.
Still be, still have 300 years of life left in him. Stories for a long time there.
Yeah, and then he has like relics of Din, right? Like something like
his Mandalorian armor.
Yeah, or the little knob that he always played with as a kid, and you know what I mean. There's like flashbacks, maybe like there could be so much with Grogu.
Yeah,
and really like Rebecca mentioned, interesting to see Knights Old Republic era content too, something further back than the High Republic.
Unfortunately, I think everyone saw the news this week. We might have to wait longer for that than maybe expected.
Longer for the game. That broke my heart, man. That's the thing I'm looking forward to more than anything is that game. So I was devastated when I read that news.
Yeah, I think most people thought it was coming out sometime next year.
That's what I was hoping for, but now it's looking like I think 24, 25. The article I read said indefinitely, but that just means nobody knows what's going on. Is what that means.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I kind of wanted to finish off here with the end of the movie here, where Beckett tells him, "You should have been paying attention, kid. You should have been paying attention. You never listened to me. You never listened to me."
Mm-hmm.
And then Han shoots first.
Yeah.
Han shoots first and kills him, and you could almost think like, oh, is he gonna? He kind of looks like the bad guy for killing him, but they kind of do away with that because Beckett goes, "Good move, kid. I would have killed you."
Yeah, good move, kid. I was gonna shoot you, basically.
And so, and I love, so you get that, and you get the conversation, and he can now Beckett can now go play his Valancourt.
Yeah.
But at the end, then you see Han go and find Lando, because he's got to get the Falcon.
Mm-hmm.
And I love, like, he shows up like he's all angry and mad at Lando for leaving and
does the
everything.
reversal.
And then he does the reversal again that we talked about earlier, and then gives him a big ol' hug.
And steals
he's like,
his
"Oh,
cheaters
buddy."
cards.
Yeah, and then he steals the cards, make sure he can't cheat this time. And so, and then he wins, and he's like, "Are you looking for this card?" Because I always like that, because it just goes back to the fact, no, I beat you fair and square.
Yeah, because Lando accused him of cheating.
Yeah,
He cheated by stealing the card you were going to cheat with.
Yeah.
Lando, always the interesting character, always got something up his sleeve, whether it's a card or another plan or
or a comm device talking to Vader.
I'm sure it's out there somewhere, but I want to get a Sabak card game.
Yeah,
I want to learn to play this game.
That'd be cool.
So Rebellica said, I remember seeing a shot on set where George Lucas was wearing a Han Solo or Han shot first shirt. You'd have to show me that one.
Yeah,
I bet I'm willing to bet you if he was doing it ironically. Because I think everyone knows where George stands on that debate. Obviously, if he thought Han shot first, he wouldn't have changed it.
Yeah, some like 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
but yeah, I think the end where we basically have kind of the final battle with Kira deciding what she's gonna do, and then obviously, whether it's out of, I've gone too far, I like this life, or like realizing the power, that she can get taking over, or the fear too of maybe she knows that there's somebody with a double-sided lightsaber that will take her out.
I think it's kind of interesting because she's like, her excuse to Han was, we're going to need something to buy our ship with. And my first thought was, what's wrong with the one you have right here?
That's what I was thinking too.
What's wrong with his yacht? I mean, maybe don't keep it, but just sell it. Sell it on the black market or something, so you get something for it. But then Han and his weakness is Kira, so he goes to get Beckett and she just takes off.
Yeah. And once again, going back to, don't trust anybody. just proving him right, like,
Mm-hmm.
like people are, like, oh, he's not what they appear to be. And,
Yeah,
Han
but
continues to fall for it.
that Beckett's character, he is that way because that's how he feels. He feels, why should people trust me if I feel I can't trust anyone else?
Mm-hmm.
I really like Beckett's character. I wouldn't mind some more backstory on him.
Mm-hmm.
Like the part where they find
Him
out
and
that the
him and Val.
coaxium is, we find out the coaxium is real on Dryden's ship, and so he shoots the two guards. Like, Beckett, what are you doing? He says, I'm thinking. I have to be the only one holding a gun while I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was awesome. Then we have the double-sided saber.
Him and Val busting jobs. That would be a fun show.
Yeah, for sure. And Rio.
Yes, Rio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I was gonna say the double-sided saber dagger that we have in that little battle too. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, the one that she ends up killing him with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, his like double-sided daggers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And then just finally, we've already talked about it, but what I had mentioned before is, I mean, when you finally get that, you're wondering who's higher, who's greater, right? And then you get the first shot of Maul just sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, that just once again, like we've all we've obviously all seen it so many times, but every time I see it, it just gives me goosebumps. It's so amazing to see him.
Well, and the way he ends the sentence too, Maul's like, Kira, you and I will be working much closer together from now on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, obviously there's something there.
Yep, I want to see what happens next. And just like we had talked about before, I think the failure so far, because it hasn't 100%, we don't 100% know it'll never happen, but the failure so far is they led everybody who saw this movie to believe that there's more story to be told, and then we haven't had it.
Mm-hmm.
But we want it.
And we want it. Yeah, exactly. They made us want it, and then they never gave it to us. That's the fail.
Well, and I love how this movie wraps up. After he wins the card game, it's just the two of them sitting there in the Falcon, starting it up. That's going to be their home for many number of years to come. That's the Falcon is a major character in the first movie, right?
Yeah.
And just them powering everything up and flying away. You see the dice, and then they jump to light speed. There's that scene, and that's where it ends on. Like, that's just a great way to wrap up. Han and Chewie
they said they're going to Tatooine.
Yeah,
about this gangster putting together a job.
Yeah, it's such a good movie, but I feel like it was a good way to end of them, in their Falcon together. They both push forward with on the console to jump to light speed.
Mm-hmm.
And then the credits roll. I think that's a great way to wrap it up.
Yeah, I still don't care much for the dice, but we'll talk about that in some of the movies.
Right. Because they're not. Okay, yeah, I'm interested in your opinion. We'll make that our teaser for our next episode.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the plan. Next episode we're going to be talking about The Force Awakens. Here you go, guys. We're going to be getting into the sequels. This is where the fun begins. where the trouble's going to start. I think it'll be fun. I think it will be fun. I think the controversy makes for a good discourse, though.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm excited to see what all the chat thinks about these movies too. Their different
so you
takes
gotta
on
show up
different
for next week so we can get some opinions on some sequel trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we love it or hate it, it's Star Wars, unfortunately.
So, wow.
Don't worry, chat. We do have a sequel lover on here. We do have one sequel lover here.
Mm-hmm.
He likes the sequels more than any other part of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Hey, I wouldn't say that. I think they're good movies. Or I think some of them are good movies.
Well, before
Well,
we continue, I think we should probably not continue.
Yeah, we've had a great show today, guys. If you want to support us or just chat with us, you can join the Discord. You can support us on our Patreon. We actually have introduced some perks that are available now to our Patreon members. So we will be doing that. Also, all of our links, if you want to follow us on Twitter, are in the description. And also, Q and I both have a Twitch where we stream variety of things. I've been doing Apex and some other Star Wars games and even Formula One. I've been dabbling into that. It's been fun. So if you want to check any of that out. Also, my YouTube channel where I just post clips of some of the stuff that we do while we're playing our games and just chilling and having fun with the guys. Key, you want to shout yourself out?
Yeah, I've got my my Twitter, my Twitch down there. Again, we're just playing a variety of games, anything from Apex to RTS, and I will definitely be playing some more Star Wars games. Obviously, I love Star Wars and I love games, so of course that intertwines. Yeah, I've got a YouTube down there as well for my gaming channel. If you like checking any of that out, like, subscribe, comment. Up to see Rebellica said, "What's next week's topic?" So I can do my homework. Next week's topic is The Force Awakens. We're getting into the sequel stuff, so we'd love to hear from chat, especially talking about those movies. There is a lot of opinions around the sequels, so definitely would love to have you around again.
Okay, and Josiah, you shout yourself out. Don't you have doesn't Hezekiah have a giveaway going on?
Yeah, for sure. So I don't really got much going on. You can definitely follow me on Twitter. The handle's there on the screen, Martinez, mostly if you're on audio. And yeah, my son, he does have a YouTube channel. He's 6. He's just starting it out. He's wanted to do it for a long time. So he's just starting to make videos. He's going to do like toy unboxings, Lego builds. But mostly he wanted to do a bunch of giveaways because if you don't know me, I do like to enter the giveaway now and then. So he kind of grew up, hearing me entering giveaways and, hearing me like winning giveaways. And so winning, mostly winning.
Mostly winning.
And
that's what you can change your Twitter handle
to mostly winning. Yeah. So he definitely wanted to do that on his channel. So we're going to try to be doing monthly giveaways. We actually just closed entries this morning for last month's giveaway, which was a controller of choice. But the video we're going to drop next will tell what the winner is, and then also what next month's giveaway is going to be. So yeah, the link is down below in the show notes. Definitely give him a follow, subscribe to his channel. And yeah, I definitely appreciate it. I'd also like to shout everybody out that was here live with us. It makes it so much more fun and chatting with us. Rebellica, Seth, Bruce, let's see, Send It, O'Reilly, thanks for joining us. Kaloni, always thanks for joining us. My man Sean Capri, my boy Too Big from Hawaii. Let's see who else was in here. Granite also. Thank you. Yep. Thank you, Granite, for joining. It's so fun to see everybody, our regulars in the chat, and everybody new that jumps in here and there. Definitely appreciate it. Makes it so much more fun for us.
All right. I think Q, what does Obi-Wan always say?
May the Force be with you. Always.
Always.